Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about groups of interest from the SCP Foundation. Now, I might be splitting the video up to other videos. Groups of interest. File overview. The Foundation is not the only group with an interest and investment in the paranormal and metaphysical. There are many other groups in existence who possess, use, or attempt to create SCP objects, either for their own personal gain or for the protection of mankind. Some are rival organizations, some are splinter groups of the Foundation, and some are trusted associates of the Foundation. In any case, it has been deemed necessary to create and distribute a brief on what agencies the Foundation knows about, and our stance towards them. Alexylva University. Overview. Very little is known about Alexylva University or its motives. Evidence appears to suggest that the organization exists in some sort of alternate universe in which Latin and Greek cultures maintain dominance at least over the Western Hemisphere. Nothing to date is known about any other part of this world. All university-related objects have been found in the mid-southern United States, and more specifically in Tennessee, leading Foundation researchers to believe the university itself is located in that geographical area. Many objects associated with the university which is not believed to have built the objects are recovered during postal transit via an agency known as the Trans-Simmon Combine and accompanied by relevant paperwork, which has helped shed light on the objects and the place from which they came. To date, all that is known about the methods that transfer the objects is that the technology uses principles similar to that of the Einstein-Rosen bridge, a concept considered purely theoretical by contemporary science. A particular section of the university known as the Department of Natural Philosophy is considered responsible for the transferences, possibly without the knowledge or consent of the rest of the organization. Ambrose Restaurants. Overview. Ambrose Restaurants is a large-scale chain of fine dining eateries, located in various public locations across Earth along with several locations in anomalous or extra-dimensional locations of interest. These restaurants specialize in anomalous food and culinary practices, and vary widely in variation and style. Despite the scale of the Ambrose Restaurants chain, they are generally non-hostile and will instead flee from threats directed towards them. Ambrose Restaurants is currently believed to be jointly owned by persons of interest, Chaz Ambrose and Marius, but due to lack of public appearances, this is unconfirmed. Notably, several groups of interest have engaged in relations with Ambrose Restaurants, including Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited, and Herman Fuller's Circus of the Disquieting, though the extent with which they collaborate is unknown. As the Ambrose Restaurants chain continues to expand beyond anomalous markets, any new locations are to be shut down and valuable information on Ambrose Restaurants saved. Anderson Robotics. Overview. Based in the Pacific Northwest, Anderson Robotics first came to the Foundation's attention in 2007 with the capture of SCP-1360, led by Vincent Anderson, and specializing in the sale of anomalous androids, robots, artificial intelligences, and cybernetics. Anderson Robotics has quickly gained a fair amount of traction in the realm of paratechnology. The group's small size, remarkable espionage capabilities, and surprisingly large resource base has made apprehension of any Anderson employee difficult, with only a handful of Anderson products currently in the hands of the Foundation. Description. Anderson Robotics is a paratech firm specializing in the sale of anomalous robots, androids, artificial intelligence, computer programs, and cybernetics. While it is believed that Anderson Robotics has been in operation since the 1990s, the firm first came to the Foundation's attention in 2007, after the capture of SCP-1360 during a raid on a paratech trafficking warehouse in Seattle. Since this initial contact, Anderson Robotics has been recognized as the foremost dealer of robotics paratechnology, while Anderson Robotics has achieved a worldwide presence, especially following its 2014 distribution partnership with Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited. Its current base of operations is the continental United States, particularly in the Pacific Northwest. Major production, distribution, and administrative facilities have been uncovered in Oregon, Washington, and California, with recent expansions into New Mexico, Arizona, and Louisiana. Multiple SCP objects have been attributed to this group since its discovery. Personnel may reference items indexed under Anderson for a complete list. Current investigations into the internal framework of Anderson Robotics by MTF Gamma 13 has uncovered that the primary administrative core of the firm consists of a board of 6 individuals listed below. Vincent Anderson, Chief Executive Officer. Type Blue Anomalous Humanoid. Albert Phineas Frostman, Chief Operating Officer. Type Blue Anomalous Humanoid. Dr. Medea Kontos, CEO Head of Research and Development. Jason Kontos, CEO Head of Research and Development. Dr. Jeffrey Wilson, Head of Advanced Logic Division. Isaac Dillard, Executive Officer. Attempts to apprehend the above individuals have been hampered by the organization's remarkable espionage abilities, anomalous nature of their facilities, and strong support from external groups of interest. Footnotes. 1. Due to the use of Seika units in Anderson's workforce, it's difficult to pinpoint an exact number of employees. 2. Asimov's Lawbringers. 3. This not only includes MC&D and the GOC, both of whom have multiple supply contracts with Anderson Robotics, but also the Church of Maxwellism, who hold favorable views of Anderson Robotics products and personnel. Arcadia. Overview. Defined by highest highs and lowest lows, Arcadia was a rampage through the video game industry driven by arcane, occult technologies that relied on luck as much as demons. But they made it work. This popularity came at the expense of their customers' exploitation and damnation without their knowledge, of course. All that slowed to a crawl, however, after the 1983 video game crash and the other world started collecting on unfulfilled promises. Their buyout by technology powerhouse Prism Products Corporation in 1991 revitalized the Arcadia name, albeit under shady practices and behind closed doors. The Arcadia of today is an entirely different beast. Nobody is exactly sure what they do. Rumors are the only knowledge most have, but some say their longtime rival, the FBI have more that they're not spilling. If you're curious, maybe find some Arcadia to play. Because after all, why not Arcadia? Startup. Arcadia was first and foremost Arcadia Electronic Software, a hopeful startup organization. Nobody knows exactly when Arcadia was founded, but everyone knew that Nolan Bushnell was at the forefront of it. Arcadia, or Arcadia Prime, as nicknamed by Bushnell, was created during his tenure at Utah State. In 1964, he took himself and his venture to the University of Utah's College of Engineering, where he would meet more like-minded fellows. 1964 would be the year that Arcadia became Arcadia. Emergence. Bushnell was the hotshot of his class in 1964, boasting and bragging about his business ideas. It wasn't long before Bushnell's university friends learned of the Arcadia venture and asked to join. One of those friends being Ted Dabney. They met while studying in the Stanford University Artificial Intelligence Lab and bonded over a shared love of the Go board game and occult rituals. Nolan and Ted saw opportunity in the lab's engrossing electronic games, and they took it. The most popular game on campus was Space War, a simple space combat game. The pair ripped it off with ease, but that wasn't the only thing they planned on ripping. They'd come up with an idea while they sat together mumbling incantations at midnight. Ted Dabney had conceived of a technological innovation that could unlock the secrets of harnessing the cursed magics of the underworld. It was a small step to transfer their knowledge and interests over to Arcadia. That year, President Lyndon B. Johnson woke up in a cold sweat and began frantically sketching out a horrible visage which had come in his dreams. White squares endlessly batting back and forth in deep space forever. This triggered a chain of events which eventually led a mild-mannered engineer named Ralph Barr to take the president's sketch and create an interstellar communication and control device. He dubbed it the Brown Box. Thus began an odyssey of triumph and terror which would last for decades to come. The SCP Foundation had ears everywhere, and they knew of what Dabney and Bushnell were up to. In turn, Bushnell knew of Bear's discovery from public demonstrations of the Brown Box's more mundane aspects. This cross-pollination led to the group's first big break. The Foundation would provide funding for a collective experience-gathering experiment to create a human capable of reliably engaging with the Brown Box. In exchange, Arcadia would supply their technology and occult expertise. The Foundation only needed the former, but Bushnell, ever the shrewd businessman, insisted on providing both. The money flowed in like water. Household. Kicking into gear in 1967, Arcadia quickly appropriated connections in order to make their first original product, the Dabney syzygy inhibitor, partnering with Nutting Associates under the guise of developing a commercial computer game. The inhibitor inside what would become Computer Space allowed them to refine their technique on half-drunk pinball players who didn't understand the ramifications of trading their souls for quarters. Unlocking the secrets of hell gave them a new conundrum. Portals to hell are a two-way street. Once you've opened the door, you'd better be ready to parlay on the demon's terms. What if there was a way to moderate the energy coming through that aperture? Hold it open just a crack. Let the corrupting power flow out without unleashing doom. Harness the energy given off when sending souls back through. Double dipping on a devil's bargain. It wouldn't be too long before the Foundation scooped up the project assets and cut ties with the darkening hearts of Bushnell and his goons. Looking for more funding now that he didn't have the limitless funds of the Men in Black, Bushnell grew tired under the self-imposed limitations of Arcadia and left in 1969 to pursue his own projects. His little cabal left with him. Arcadia was thrust into the hands of Dan Wolfdun, a recently hired visual designer and story writer. It was under Dunn's management that Arcadia became a household name. Despite having left, Bushnell and CEO would frequently collaborate with Arcadia. Dunn used these projects as reputation fodder to his advantage. Arcadia started to produce games for companies desperately outsourcing projects during the video game boom. Their popularity spiked. Arcadia independently developed hundreds, if not thousands of games in their heyday years. Working at Arcadia at this time was a tricky proposition. You never knew whether the gal or guy sitting next to you was a regular employee or a devil worshipper in business attire. The drugs had abated, but never truly went away. There was never enough money coming in to make everyone feel comfortable. The culture was balancing on a knife's edge. Nevertheless, Dunn and Arcadia were full of themselves, ego oozing from everything they developed. The quality of their games started to drop as more and more saturated the market. The demonic influences started to peek through. Arcadia as a whole was totally unprepared for the video game market crash of 1983. This Arcadian shock sapped the market to a fraction of its former value, resulting in the rough and dirty death throes of the company. They weren't quite ready to give up yet. Renaissance. The 1985 Arcadia rebranding came as a direct result of Wolf Dunn and the rest of the company still not believing in the start of Arcadia's downfall. Most employees left during the start of this year, moving to companies who actually cared about their workers or starting independent projects. The rest of the general staff were fired. The parties and the drugs got a significant increase and were funded from fingers dipped in the reserves for their paychecks. Dunn finally realized in mid-1985 the severity of the losses that Arcadia had taken during their drug-filled stupors. He had also been tiring of the near 20 years of demonic influences upon Arcadia. Seeing a premiere of Don Giovanni scared Dunn enough to completely remedy it. Through a significant amount of computing products created to harvest souls, Arcadia paid its long past due debt, and the demons released their stranglehold upon Dunn. To save the rest of Arcadia, Dunn spent the rest of the money allocated for corporate parties into cleaning up their older games and scrubbing the rest of the negative influences from the company. They went back to Arcadia's roots to fill quotas for the upkeep of the former Arcadia empire by dabbling in software production. It wasn't enough. By the end of 1985, Arcadia was reduced to 7% of the influence that it had only 5 years ago. The rest of the executives weren't convinced and effectively cast Wolf Dunn off from Arcadia. He left in 1986. His idea for a new Arcadia wouldn't leave with him. Shadow. In 1986, Arcadia returned to the look it had when it was a powerhouse. It was anything but. Arcadia had no real objective past survival, grasping at straws and odd job offers from companies looking to make a cheap buck. Deprived of their empire, their equipment, their funding, and their place of prominence, Arcadia would never again be able to dictate the terms. They would be lucky to survive at all. The company underwent talks of being bought out. The remaining Arcadia employees, still dreaming big despite their much shallower pockets, tried to hang tight as every one of their original projects failed to make it out of the prototype stage. Meanwhile, ex-Arcadian employees would put out unlicensed, unofficial, and still dangerously demonic games with the Arcadia name still applied on. They feared nothing from a company that spent most of its time keeping themselves afloat, much less quelling active legal breaches. There weren't many mourners when the company finally went quiet in the late 80s. Rebirth. Arcadia re-emerged in 1991 with a new face. A merger with the powerhouse technologies company Prism Products Corporation not only allowed Arcadia to enter new markets, but also come back from the brink of death. Arcadia's redesign shocked those who had been working for the company for decades. Their original projects started to gain traction in the world of video games again, and other developers wanted to outsource to the company that had once been the pinnacle of independent game design. Despite their success, nobody within Arcadia knew what or who to attribute it to. Their new management was ruthlessly efficient, but paid extremely well. Arcadia itself never quite seemed to have the influence in the public sphere that came from the projects that they completed. Additionally, the lower-level contracts they had been adjusted to were thrown out in favor of bigger projects that never seemed to be released outside of Arcadia. Rumors were told that Dunn had come back to instill his 85 vision into the new Arcadia. Nothing was ever proven or disproven, even though it sat in the shadows of more popular companies. The 1990s were a good time for Arcadia. Arcadia was content with its place existing, but not fully present. Influential, but not powerful. Some of Arcadia had been lost, but not any of its meaning. The company shot for the stars, but it never forgot where it came from. Icon. Arcadia closed their public division in 2006 along with a logo redesign. No one knows what the company does for sure anymore, but the Arcadia name shows up in the shelves in the video game section occasionally. The word is they'll do anything for anyone who pays them. Arcadia may not be what it once was. It may not even be Arcadia anymore. The only way to determine that for sure, find Arcadia to play. After all, why not Arcadia? Organizations or personnel. Arcadia, the original organization, founded by Nolan Bushnell, who loosely led it until 1969, when Bushnell left to work on his own ventures. Originally a high-powered drug-fueled cabal of dark magic users ready and willing to use their magic for fun and profit, it slipped into mundaneness in the late 80s. Reborn in the 90s and the 2000s, modern Arcadia feels like a silent domination, an entirely different Arcadia from the one that openly ruled the video game market with an iron fist. Prism Products Corporation, technologic powerhouse founded in the UK and with several operating locations in the USA. Familiar with Arcadia since the 1970s, but no official connections until their buyout of Arcadia in 1991. Several PPC personnel and Arcadia employees are acquainted with each other, under secret investigation by the UIU for several incidents regarding anomalous technology and biohazards. Nolan Bushnell, ruthless businessman and marketer who found success after leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. Personally charming and charismatic, in one-on-one conversation, he can convince just about anybody to do anything. Hair appears to be perpetually greasy no matter how many showers he takes. Left Arcadia in 1969. Ted Dabney, occult machine designer responsible for the technology at the core of Arcadia's ability to act in the occult world, the Dabney syzygy inhibitor. He leaves Arcadia with Bushnell. Dan Wolf Dunn, designer and writer with Arcadia Prime, and subsequent leader of Arcadia during its glory years and its downfall. A mostly friendly and good-spirited guy, he often can't see his own shortcomings, will often become hyper-focused on tasks, always wears a signature orange tie. Left Arcadia in 1986, purported to be a part of modern-day Arcadia. Are we cool yet? Overview. A collective of anomalous artists or anarchists, members of Are We Cool Yet, are capable of either obtaining or producing anomalous objects and entities, and using them to create art installations. These installations are placed for maximum public exposure and have been fatal to bystanders. The phrase, "Are we cool yet?" is always present in some way. Are We Cool Yet? Is an artistic movement existing on the fringes of the international avant-garde, with roots in the early surrealist art movements of the late 19th and early 20th century and the growing scientific understanding and study of the anomalous that began to develop during that time. For one man's account of how the movement came into its own, refer to the contest entry tale Birth of the Cool. The movement has no centralized leadership, no headquarters, very few traditions or conventions, and no official membership roles or requirements. The only thing one need do to call oneself a member is to make art that employs, exploits, or revolves around anomalous objects, beings, or phenomena. The organization of an AWCY cell varies wildly from place to place. Many groups are organized into small salons led by a creative mastermind or a professional critic, while others are collectives with no clear leader, and some members prefer to work entirely on their own. In the opinions of some, it is not even necessary to know that the movement exists in order to be a part of it. The tendency of some such groups to produce highly visible public artworks that cause death, injury, or lasting psychological harm has led some to decry the entire movement as a bunch of art terrorists, a label some of its members wear with pride, some repudiate entirely, and some wear ironically. The largest and most visible gathering of AWCY artists in any place or time is Sumsnaus de Venus Magnifiques, a grand exhibition held every 10 years since 1874, at which those in the know can gather to view and scrutinize a selection of some of the finest works in anomalous art produced over the previous decade. To have a work accepted is considered by those who care about such things to be one of the greatest achievements an artist can attain in a career, and members of cells all around the world petition to have their works displayed. Information. AWCY objects are described in a format called a project proposal. The project proposal is a brief essay by an individual artist about an object he has either created or intends to create, and is submitting for consideration in the decennial exhibition, or which they are seeking funding or materials from a patron so that they can create it. The page title of a proposal should be Project Proposal 30XY. Title, in which 30X is the year of the next exhibition for which it will be eligible for entry. So if the artist is writing in the late 70s, it would be in preparation for the 1984 Expo, Y being an arbitrary number assumed to be derived from the order in which that proposal was received by the exposition submission jury, and title being the artist's name for the object. The essay is formatted as follows. Title, the artist's title for the piece as mentioned above, italicized. Material requirements, a bulleted list of materials the artist used to create the piece or which they expect to need, ranging from the ordinary to the exotic and hard to find to that which is anomalous in and of itself. Abstract, a brief description of the piece, what it is, what it's supposed to do, how it does it if the artist knows, how it should be displayed, etc. Intent, in this section, the artist, speaking in first person, describes their reasons for creating this piece, what motivated them to come up with the idea, what they hope to achieve by producing it, how they went about making it, who the intended audience is, what kind of reaction they hope to get from the audience, and so on. The Black Queen. Overview. Very little conclusive information has been recovered about the person of interest called the Black Queen. She claims the given name Lesson Chow, the name of the daughter of researcher Dr. Gears and Chow before Gears' recruitment by the Foundation. The Black Queen possesses unusual knowledge of Foundation structure and activities, and contained anomalies. The reason for this unusual knowledge has yet to be conclusively identified, but it appears to be gained partially through anomalous means, including the possibility of extra universal information sources. She has repeatedly been able to breach Foundation security utilizing this information, in addition to classified anomalous means. Conflicting reports exist of the Black Queen's activities and motivations likely due to multiple individuals or deliberate counterintelligence. Initial reports characterize her as malevolent, murderous, and destructive. Other reports characterize her as neutral or benevolent. All intelligence indicates her hostility towards the Foundation. There are reports of the Black Queen's involvement with most major groups of interest known to the Foundation, along with several world governments. Unverified sources claim that she is the same individual as L.S. of the Serpent's Hand, and that L.S. stands for Little Sister. The reason for this unusual close connection is possibly due to the Black Queen's use of the Wanderer's Library. Intelligence indicates the presence of multiple other individuals also calling themselves the Black Queen. The nature and origin of these individuals is inconclusive. Who is the Black Queen? Gear's daughter. Years ago, when she was still very young, her father abandoned her and her mother. No note, no packed suitcase, no nothing. Just there 1 minute, gone the next. Her mother promptly fell apart, leaving Allison to largely fend for herself. Over the years, she became fixated on the idea of finding her father. Through whatever means necessary, she will find her father and bring to account those who stole her family from her. Note: the following is, by its very nature, spoilerific. It is highly suggested that you read Going Out of Book, Between Shelves, and Queen's Gambit. If you've done so, or don't particularly like surprises, then click onward. This is simply the general framework for the Black Queens. There are hundreds of Black Queens scattered across thousands of universes. Most never become aware of the existence of other queens and simply do their own thing in their universe, or die or remain normal or whatever. However, a precious few discover this. What does the Black Queen want? To destroy the Foundation, to rebuild her family, to punish those responsible for all of the suffering caused to her and her mother. At least, that's usually what she wants initially. Sometimes she just wants to wander the ways. Others, she seeks to rule the world with an iron fist. Black Queens rarely interfere with one another unless their goals are in direct opposition. Where is the Black Queen? The nexus of all of the universes. The library contains all information ever recorded. It is the meeting place of the Serpent's Hand. It is also the central gathering point for the Black Queens. While in the library, the queens refer to one another and themselves as Little Sisters, or LS. Among the Serpent's Hand, it's amazing what one can do when no one knows who you are. The Black Queens use the Serpent's Hand primarily as a listening post, but may also try to spur the group to direct action in service of their goals. Who is Dr. Gears? Dr. Gears is, depending on the universe, a robot, an emotionally dead man, an anomalous artifact, or something else entirely. Whatever he is, Gears always plays a pivotal role in the world of the anomalous in whatever universe he's in. Black Queens will frequently go out of their way to preserve the life of a Gears, although some may seek to destroy dangerous iterations of him. Where are the Black Queen's secrets? In the multiversal catalogs, whenever a particular instance of an object is encountered on a different world, it is noted, often iterations of the Black Queen, with a great deal of knowledge on or interest in the object will annotate the catalog to provide greater insight through updates, questions, comments, as well as logs of heists and visual information. The Chaos Insurgency. Overview. The Chaos Insurgency is a splinter group of the Foundation, created by a rogue cell that went AWOL with several SCP objects in 1924. Since then, the Insurgency has become a major player on the world stage, using the anomalies that it obtains for its own benefit and to consolidate its global power base. The Insurgency not only deals in anomalies, but also in weapons, running and intelligence gathering. It makes use of authoritarian regimes in poor and developing countries, often using their populations in the same manner as the Foundation does D-class personnel. It helps to maintain the extreme poverty and war that is suffered by these countries, so that it can continue its radical experimentation, easy conscription of forces, and lucrative business deals with various opposing factions. Most of the anomalous objects possessed by the Insurgency are unknown. Among the most notable items are the Staff of Hermes, an item capable of warping the physical and chemical properties of any matter it touches, and the Bell of Entropy, an object that can cause a variety of destructive effects, depending on where it is struck. Both of these objects were originally obtained at no small cost by the Foundation, and were stolen by the original founders of the Insurgency. The SCP objects and other anomalies, stolen from the Foundation, typically possess high potential for direct utility, but the Insurgency has also made use of anomalies with less direct applications, such as SCP-884. The main base of operations of the Insurgency is unknown, as are its current leaders. This organization is directly antagonistic to the Foundation, using deadly force to attempt to prevent Foundation containment of multiple anomalies. The Foundation has also been infiltrated by agents of the Insurgency in the past, resulting in the loss of valuable scientific data, theft of a number of anomalies, and deaths of personnel. Personnel are made to be aware of possible raids, terrorist action, and spies from the Insurgency, and are to notify their superiors about any activities from fellow personnel fitting the Insurgency behavioral profile. In 1924, the SCP Foundation formed a covert special task force known only to the O5 Council, codenamed the Insurgency. The leadership of the Insurgency was comprised of members of MTF Alpha 1, the Red Right Hand, famed for their loyalty to the O5 Council and the total secrecy of their origins, identities, and operations. The Insurgency leadership was supported by research, security, and retrieval personnel, all taken from Foundation ranks. To the majority of the Foundation and the anomalous world, the Insurgency was a splinter group that went AWOL with several researchers and anomalous objects. In reality, the O5 Council had created the Insurgency to complete missions with ethically questionable methods and politically unsavory results while keeping the Foundation's public reputation clean. For approximately 24 years, the Insurgency operated under the guise of Foundation defectors using anomalous objects to secretly further the goals of the O5 Council. In 1948, as part of a seemingly routine, staged operation, the Insurgency removed several SCP objects from Foundation containment and transported dozens of defecting Foundation researchers to various safe locations. That same day, multiple other unplanned raids of Foundation facilities occurred. The Insurgency seized SCP objects with great research and military potential and inflicted severe casualties to Foundation personnel. The Foundation's biggest lie had become a reality. Their covert Black OPS team had defected, and the Foundation faced a new threat from an organization now calling itself by a new name, the Chaos Insurgency. The O5 Council was stunned. The defection, or even the slightest hint of disloyalty from Red Right Hand personnel had been unprecedented. The motives behind the Insurgency's betrayal remain unknown to the Foundation. All attempts to find, apprehend, or assassinate the defecting Insurgency operatives failed. This information is classified within the Foundation, which maintains that the Insurgency defected in 1924 and that the actual defections in 1948 were simply raids made by the already existing splinter organization. The modern-day Chaos Insurgency bears some similarities to the organization that founded it. The Chaos Insurgency's Delta Command, shrouded in mystery, issues orders to the lower ranks. Gamma-class researchers and military commanders have oversight over the execution of the Delta Command's orders, while Beta-class personnel, while not given the same level of command as Gamma-class, carry out the Insurgency's work in the field. Alpha-class personnel, often recruited from individuals with little to no knowledge of the anomalous, accept offers of employment, often because the alternative is to carry on a miserable existence outside the anomalous world. They are the grunt workers, numerous and expendable. The Insurgency is split into two divisions, military and R&D. Cells within both divisions work independently, unaware of the exact actions and goals of other cells. New recruits receive instructions from their superiors and are expected to follow them unquestioningly, not knowing that every action they take is part of a larger plan orchestrated by the Delta Command. They are told that they are carrying out a great rebellion against the anarchy of the status quo, a world where consensus reality itself is an illusion, history's great lie perpetrated by the Foundation. They are told that they will use the anomalous to build a utopian future where humanity is master of everything, not just a mirage. But really, who knows what the Chaos Insurgency actually wants? I'll upload part 2 soon. Thanks for watching.